What's up, everyone? Andy from WagerTalk.com. Welcome to another episode of Life in the Fast Lane. We have a jam-packed episode. We got the NASCAR playoff starting. We have another Formula One race after the Max Verstappen domination. A lot to get to, so we're going to jump right into it. 4-1 last week in Formula One bets. That brings us to just over 60% for the year. We're having an incredible year, and this is a phenomenal weekend to bet. I love betting on Darlington, and I love betting on this Formula One track. So expect a lot of plays that will come out for the auto racing pack that is up on WagerTalk.com. By the time you're seeing this, that should be up. Leave your comments below. I love seeing your picks. I love seeing what everybody's on. Give me your thoughts. Tell me who you like, who you don't like. Love the discussion. As we always say, the NASCAR and Formula One audience is one of the most knowledgeable here at Wager Talk. Let's just do a quick little Daytona recap. I think we all know what happened there. Logano wins stage 1. Kyle Busch wins stage 2. Austin Dillon wins the race. But, of course, the big story, the wet track incident, NASCAR. Once again, the rain somehow beats NASCAR. Like, NASCAR has supposedly the smartest people in the industry running it, and yet rain always seems to trip them up, like a basic weather element. They make the cars race when all the drivers are coming over the radio saying, it's raining, it's raining. They try to go fast into a turn. It does not work. The front cars slide out. Everyone gets collected, and we end up with a top 5 of Austin Dillon, Tyler Reddick, Austin Cindric, Landon Castle, and Noah Gragson. That's your top 5 from Daytona. It was just a very, very strange race. We did, however, have an incredible ticket that was cashed on FanDuel. And we actually got confirmation that this person won close to $1 million, like just under $1 million on a $13 parlay. I'm looking that up. So a guy had $13 and he parlayed that into $999,000. He had Cody Ware, BJ McLeod, Landon Castle, and Dave Reagan all to finish in the top 10. That is confirmed that $13.50 paid out $1 million. Absolutely incredible. I'm stunned that FanDuel accepted this bet, but that is now for the accounting department to deal with. So congratulations to that bettor. What a life-changing event. I can't imagine how happy they were when they saw the cars flying into the wall. So, all right, let us get into the Stenhouse Award. We'll start with Formula One. At the beginning of the race, Latifi runs off the track, goes into the rock, spins back onto the track, and takes out Valtteri Bottas. This was kind of funny because, of course, Bottas is doing nothing wrong, and he gets taken out. And then Latifi keeps getting to go on and race because his car was fine. Up next, we got to go over Lewis Hamilton. Lewis Hamilton gets taken out. They cut to him walking by himself outside of the track on a dirt road. I don't know what this dirt road is there for. There's weeds everywhere. He looked, if he wasn't wearing his helmet, it would have looked like a depressing country music song like video. He's just walking along. It's like, where is Lewis Hamilton going? We can't get him like a scooter. We can't get him like a golf cart or something. No, he's just going to walk miles around the track. So I got a real kick out of that one. Let's see what else happened. Well, Lando Norris comes over the radio with 5 laps left, and he wants to change strategies. The radio comes, the team comes over the radio and is just livid. They're like, "No, Lando, there's 5 laps left. We're not changing strategies." I think they said there's like strategy G. It's like, you guys are running out of letters. Shout out to Jim who made this joke on Twitter. It's like they're running out of letters on strategies. So Lando Norris. And then, my gosh, 1 lap left. Ferrari decides to bring in Leclerc to put on soft tires to go for the fastest lap. Leclerc doesn't want to come into the pits. They make him anyway. They time it wrong. He comes out of the pits behind Fernando Alonso. So he has to pass Fernando Alonso to get his spot back. He doesn't get the fastest lap. And earlier in the race, he had a 5-second penalty for speeding in the pits. So he ends up being finished behind Fernando Alonso. So they bring him in unnecessarily to try and get a point, and they end up losing a spot because of it. Just another classic Ferrari bonehead move. I don't know what they're doing there this year, but it's got to be one of the most prominent storylines in Formula One this year is Ferrari and their ridiculous strategies. It's a clown show. And then NASCAR, NASCAR letting the race go on despite all the drivers saying it's raining. They go flying around a corner. Everyone slips, wrecks. The race ends up a disaster. We're going co-winners for the Stenhouse Award. NASCAR and a Ferrari are just going to be the co-winners. I can't decide which one was more ridiculous. Ferrari making Leclerc go for the fastest lap when Leclerc doesn't want to, and then they end up costing themselves a position. And then NASCAR once again losing to the rain getting the better of NASCAR. Those have got to be the co-winners for the Stenhouse Award. So Ferrari and NASCAR making multiple appearances on the Stenhouse Award this year. Okay, so NASCAR, we got playoffs. Let's go through who is going to be in the playoffs. Elliott, Logano, Chastain, Larson, Byron, Hamlin, Blaney, Reddick, Harvick, Christopher Bell, Kyle Busch, Briscoe, Suarez, Austin Cindric, Bowman, and Austin Dillon all make it into the playoffs. Martin Truex is out. What an absolute stunner that Truex does not make it into the playoffs. The track, we all know it, Darlington. They've raced here earlier this year. This is my favorite track on the NASCAR circuit. Of course, the legendary story about how it got built. One side of the track had to be made different than the other because they didn't want it to interfere with the minnow pond. When you're looking at the finish from earlier this year, make sure that you realize that Ross Chastain, Kyle Busch, and Kyle Larson all wrecked. So you're going to see that they had terrible finishes, but it was because of wrecks. So make sure you're doing adjustments if you're trying to bet this on your own. Joey Logano ends up winning the race with Reddick, Justin Haley, and Kevin Harvick and Chase Elliott rounding out your top finishers there. So how do we handicap this? A lot of ways, Darlington is a one-off track. It's really hard to compare a certain track to Darlington. But here's what I did. I'm taking the average finishes. I'm going to throw Richmond. I'm going to throw Michigan. I'm going to throw Pocono, New Hampshire, and the Darlington race earlier this year. And you're going to see tough sledding on all these tracks. We don't have one guy that averaged a finish inside the top 5. Your number 1 at Richmond, Michigan, Pocono, New Hampshire, and Darlington is Chase Elliott with an average finishing position of 5.2. Denny Hamlin is next, 7.0. Kevin Harvick, 8.0. Christopher Bell, 8.2. Martin Truex is in 5th, but it doesn't matter. He is not in the playoffs. So interesting list of characters there. Elliott, Hamlin, I think we would expect to be there. Harvick, probably expect to be in there, but Christopher Bell, a little bit of surprise. He's run really good at those tracks. At times, he's been the best Gibbs driver, so maybe look for him as a little bit of a sleeper in these playoffs. So I wanted to go over here real quick if I can pull up the tracks that they're going to race at here in the playoffs, because I think it's important to look ahead to see what drivers may have an advantage coming in here. So if I pull them up here real quick. So round of 16, they're going to race Darlington, Kansas, and Bristol. So you're going to get an intermediate track, cookie cutter, and then you got that short one at Bristol. When we cut it down to 12, you're going to go Texas, Talladega, and Charlotte Road Course. This is going to be the crazy one. You've got the super speedway, which can take out any number of drivers. You got Texas, which is pedal to the metal, like full throttle, the full speed ahead, and then the road course. The last race in that segment is a road course. So huge advantage to Chase Elliott, Ross Chastain, Kyle Larson, that they could get some really good finishes. And honestly, looking at Larson and Elliott, that may be your winner. They can sneak a win on that road course and advance to the round of 8, which is Las Vegas, Homestead, and Martinsville. So we're kind of seeing some similar tracks there, Las Vegas and Homestead, cookie cutters, and then a little bit of a shorter track there on Martinsville, all culminating in November where they go to Phoenix. So it's really important when you're looking at some of these bets in the playoffs to look ahead. This is the only time of the NASCAR season where you have to look ahead and see what tracks they're racing on. Whoever wins Darlington, maybe you look at them that they're going to take some chances at Kansas and Bristol because they're going to advance to the next round. So they may go for some stage points and some extra playoff points as opposed to just the win. But there's a lot of different strategies, but definitely keep an eye out for what tracks are going to be there. So we're going to do a free bet here at the end that involves this race at Darlington. So let's take a trip to the slipstream and let's talk Formula One. Let's go over the Belgium Grand Prix. We have a crazy start. Hamilton takes himself out of the race early. I mean, credit to him. He said it was his fault, and it was his fault. And then we get the hilarious shot of him walking down the dirt road. Sainz gets out front, and Max gets a great start. Just brilliant. Did not push anything right off the start. Was very safe. Protected his car. Just flies through the field, and then he gets up to 8th, and we have the yellow, and the safety car comes out, bunches up the field, and you could just feel it was over. I think when the safety car came out, I think he was like minus 400 to win the race, and it was just early on. He passes cars easily. Leclerc has to come into the pits. I thought it was because of a tire issue. It turns out a visor pull-off got into his brake duct. It turned out it was Verstappen's. So Verstappen not only gets a great start, but manages to get a visor pull-off to go into Leclerc's brake duct. And I got to be honest, Leclerc's car just wasn't great after that. I don't know if it did any damage to it, but his car just wasn't there. Vettel probably got the best start of everybody. And he managed to hold it together. He got a top 10 finish out of that. He ran in 5th for a while. So that was a great race from Vettel. Ocon battles all day, gets up to 5th with the antics of Leclerc late. I thought George Russell did a great job. He got the most out of his car. Those Mercedes were not good in practice and qualifying. He has a pretty respectable finish. So once again, George Russell getting the most out of his car. Latifi, we talked about him, about how he manages to spin, takes out Bottas. He gets to keep racing, and then he finishes DFL, dead effing last among running cars. Verstappen and Perez easily complete the 1-2, followed by Sainz, Russell, Alonso, and Ocon is up there. So pretty interesting race, and we're going to turn around and race 1 week later, and I don't know how many adjustments are going to be made for Ferrari or even Mercedes to try and keep up with Red Bull. There was a great article on Formula1.com talking about the technical aspects, and we talked about the porpoising last week, the car bouncing and the flexible boards. What Red Bull has done is they figured out a compound to fill in those flexible boards that's lighter than all the other cars. They also set up their wing a little bit different. It's a really good article. If you're a gearhead, I encourage you to go check that out because it does a good job explaining why Red Bull were so much more faster. So we did some storyline updates coming out of the break. I want to just visit back to some of those and see if we learned anything. So there were teams that were going to bring updates to their cars. Besides the Red Bull really increasing their speed, I didn't see anything. I know there were some cars that thought they were going to be fast, a la Mercedes, and they just weren't. So nothing really of note besides Red Bull's dominance. We talked about Aston Martin creating their new wing. Wanted to see if it made them faster. If so, every team will go to that wing. Vettel was decent, but I think it had more to do with his great start, and he was able to just hold off everybody. I don't think they were talking much about how much faster the Aston Martins were. I can't imagine any team moves to this wing style at this point. Ferrari, the storyline, they're going to do what's best for Ferrari. Don't be surprised if they implement team orders. They still can't get their strategy right. Look, they weren't going to beat the Red Bulls, but they keep tripping over themselves, and it's frankly really embarrassing for them. The anti-porpoising rules go into effect. Mercedes said they thought they would benefit. They did not. They were bad in qualifying and practice. If Hamilton stays in that race, who knows where he ends up, but he certainly did not seem like he was going to have any speed. We talked about Daniel Ricciardo leaving McLaren. Ricciardo was okay this week in the McLaren, but Lando Norris was terrible. It's just a nightmare year for Ricciardo. I feel really bad for him. He gained a lot of fans from the Netflix show, but it's just not happening for him. So, all right, let's take a look at the Dutch Grand Prix, and we can take a look at this track. There's some similarities to the track from last week, but here's the big thing. Red Bull was able to make themselves faster in the corners and in those non-DRS areas. We already know they're wicked quick on the straightaways. But where they really made the difference was in the corners and in the turns and the middle parts of the track. So we have a couple DRS zones at this track. I don't know what's going to change from last week to this week. Teams only have a week to make changes, and Verstappen was so much better than everyone else. He's the rightful favorite. I mean, he's almost a minus 200 in some places just to win. I mean, we're getting to some ridiculous numbers. But who else are you going to take? I mean, if you take somebody else, you're probably hoping for an accident or a reliability issue, which they haven't demonstrated they have any problems. And if Verstappen gets on the pole and gets out to the lead, look out. Ferrari are still struggling with their strategy, but the other big red flag was they just did not have the speed to keep up. So they're dealing with speed issues and they're dealing with strategy issues, and they're just falling farther and farther behind in the constructors and the drivers' championships. I don't think Mercedes is going to be able to compete. I think one of the bigger questions for the mid-pack is what happened to the McLarens last week. They were really bad. And if they're really bad, again, you may be looking at some surprise drivers to get inside the top 10, and that could open up some good betting opportunities. Valtteri Bottas didn't get a chance to race last week, but if the McLaren struggle to show speed, Ricciardo and Norris, they should be in the top 10, but if you take those two guys out, you're going to put two more guys in. Maybe we're looking at Aston Martin with Vettel with another top 10. Maybe Bottas sneaks in there. So we're going to keep an eye on practice to see if the McLarens are struggling as much as they did last week. So, and the Alpines, they look to be top 8 cars. They're kind of steady Eddie. So if you get a good matchup on an Alpine, especially if they don't qualify well, but if they practice good but kind of slip up on qualifying, it looks like they're good enough to move through the field and get inside that top 8. All right, let's get to our free bet. I mentioned it's going to be in the NASCAR race, and it is at Darlington. This is a phenomenal price on Kevin Harvick to finish inside the top 10. In the last 5 races at Darlington, he has the best average finish with an average finish of 3.8, and Kevin Harvick is in the playoffs. Once we get to the playoffs, I'm going to find it really hard to be betting on guys that are not in the playoffs, because we know teams move all of their assets and all their best crews and all their resources to drivers and crew teams that are in the playoffs. So if you get a great matchup with like maybe somebody who's in the playoffs against a Martin Truex, that would be good. But I'm going to look for Kevin Harvick to finish inside the top 10 at one of his favorite tracks. He finished 4th earlier this year at this track. So we're getting a great price. I saw it at minus 120 on DraftKings at the time of recording. So that's going to be our free bet. There are going to be a lot of bets this weekend. I can already tell we're going to have some really good matchups at Darlington, and we're also going to have quite a bit at the Formula One. You get the auto racing pack, and it will include all practice, qualifying, and race day plays. So we're hitting 60%. Encourage everybody to go grab that pack. 60% on the year. We're having one of our best years ever. Good luck. It's going to be an exciting weekend of racing. 2 fantastic races. Let's make it a profitable one. Thank you, everybody. Leave your comments and picks below, and I will see everyone next week on another episode of Life in the Fast Lane.